Welcome back to the Teacher's AI Cafe. I'm Kane, a teacher and a parent who wants AI to give us back our time. I share practical classroom-tested AI strategies to cut down your workload, improve your feedback and reduce stress so you can get your evenings back and be more present with your friends and family. No jargon, just actionable steps. Grab your mug. Now let's get going. Welcome back to a bonus episode. And the reason I'm doing this is that last Friday, which was the 30th of February, I went to a Career Connect. We go to these every year. This is part of my role as a career practitioner. And I was really looking forward to this one because it had a big AI theme of it. And obviously AI for us career practitioners is a really big thing because we're obviously trying to advise our students going out into post-school options and what would be the best. Now, and we had two guest speakers, and there's nothing wrong with the guest speakers. I was expecting a lot more that was actually going to come out of these conversations. So one of them is Alex Jenkins, very highly credentialed. Had a TED Talk, I found out. I'll link it in the show notes. You can go watch it. Back from 2 years ago, I think. He's the director of the WA Science Innovation Hub, chair of Curtin AI and Research, member of the WA Advisory Board. And I was actually honestly looking for really big things. And I guess the problem we've got at the moment in terms of AI and careers and direction. And I was actually giving his role, I was actually expecting a lot. And if you look at his TED Talk, he's more talking about mathematics and giving support within school, which I think is really cool as well, as in everyone has got their own private tutor. And I remember the earlier idea that could be a definite thing for big AI, I think, in the future. But getting back to his talk. So his talk was Generative AI in the Future of Work. And what I found about it, he talked about, they reckon by 2030, the AI industry could be worth about $22 trillion to the global economy. AI is going to change the industry at every level. I think this is right. AI can generate things like text, images, video, and other data. And that's pretty much, which is a summary of that. And that was really good. He gave us a really quirky, and he used it in his TED Talk where he created an Egyptian-looking painting with a simple prompt, an ancient Egyptian painting depicting an argument over whose turn is to take out the trash. It looks pretty cool and be fun to show your students. And they obviously got a bit of reaction. And he talked about a couple of cases, and one was Deloitte's had to refund the government because apparently they charged the government $440,000 for a report that they wrote in AI. And apparently it wasn't a very good version of AI either. And he took a bit of a demo and things like that. And he showed an app which can make a website for you. It took 7 minutes or so of doing that, and a few other bits and pieces. But what I was most interested in is the mindset he addressed. And he touched on one thing which I think is correct to a certain degree, but he really didn't elaborate. So what he did is he talked about the wrong mindset of AI, or the idea of the organizational chart that AI is just going to fill in some blanks, as in this job's going to disappear, that job's going to disappear. And he said that's not going to be the case. And he's quite right in that regard. And he did come up with a model, and it's a model I've looked at before. And it's a model that's been employed in the IT industry, the idea of this co-pilot assistant I've spoken about previously coming in. And he had two different models, and he built them in AI looking at them, which is appropriate. So he's more talking about role replacement to role augmentation. I think that is true for a lot of jobs. And even for teachers, I'm saying AI is augmenting what you're doing. It isn't actually replacing you because you need your expertise. And I've spoken about many years ago when I looked at machine learning before generative AI came out. And they were talking about machine learning, which is early version AI, processing medical information scans. And they were picking up far more details than a human looking at, say, an X-ray chart on the thing, because it's just the nature of it can do it much finer, it can do it quicker. But at the center of that, they would say the human was still the center of making that final decision what to do with that information. He's got a limited view of the AI replaces a person, that you got a manager, team lead, you got a specialist, and one of the specialists out of the three maybe in the team gets replaced by AI. So 1/3 of the jobs disappear. And the second one is more the strategic view, is AI is a process enhancer. And for a lot of cases, especially early on, I think this will certainly be the case. So the idea is AI is collecting data, does processing for you, it's doing decision support and execution. I think that's pretty much accurate. But unfortunately, that was pretty much the extent of what he actually went into. So the idea is the basis of what I've argued is simply AI will allow you to do more productive and more efficient than your competitors. Now, the problem with that is AI might bring the cost down there, but if everyone employs AI, there's no comparative advantage in that. Once again, we're all being more productive in theory. We're using AI systems, but every company can employ exactly the same systems, maybe use it slightly differently to get an advantage. So early adopters will get an early advantage. Over time, companies will either catch up or disappear out of the market by not being as productive, which is just basically capitalism on that. But what I found interesting, that was the extent of the conversation. That remember, we were there for careers, and there was really no discussion of careers. They said this is more likely it's going to be it. And there's no real discussion of his role. And I was talking about going back to his role, like his role as the WA Government Advisory Board. So that's very high level stuff in our state. I was actually looking for more insights of maybe some studies and things where jobs I know are being impacted and data, but there was actually none of that. And his whole argument was just basically something that's already been known. Yes, it can enhance or augment what we already do, but I already knew that. And he showed some video things and things like that to go some oohs and ahs from the crowd. And that's fine as well. But for a room full of career practitioners, I was actually looking for something a lot more meaty. Now, we did have a second speaker, and this is actually from the Public Sector Union. And they were looking at a report they did around, I guess their argument is centering workers on the path to AI adoption. And our unions here in Australia, outside the education, have been talking about that, not looking at letting AI take jobs, but use it to complement and actually starting writing their agreements. I guess a bit like the actors in Hollywood where you couldn't use AI to replace writers, for example, going through. But what I found interesting was the report coming out, and they were saying they've actually noticed no reduction in entry-level jobs as a result of AI so far. So 3 years into the program, they haven't noticed that change, which is quite interesting looking at the market. As I think that is for a couple of reasons. One is a lot of the entry-level jobs here in Australia that, say, teenagers would normally do are actually already been automated and changed. What used to be one of the biggest employers, the fast food industry, how if you look at the department stores, supermarkets, they're all gone. So I saw these first in Europe, then they came to Australia. Not in Europe, I thought they were handy as a tourist. This is a self-serve. You check out your own groceries, you scan them, you put them in a basket, then you leave. They brought that into some of the department stores, actually most of the department stores now. So they've got large sections of self-serve and just 1 or 2 checkouts, whereas in the past they had lots of checkouts. And if you go into McDonald's here, there's maybe one person at the counter and there's a whole lot of screens, Hungry Jack's or Burger King for other people, KFC, it's all the same. So that removal of those entry-level jobs has actually already happened prior to AI actually coming in. And there was people got mobiles, could do ordering and things like that as well on your phone with scanning a QR code, I guess, sitting at a table or ordering before you actually turn up at the place. So those jobs were already gone, same with the supermarkets. What she didn't address on, which probably wasn't per area, is actually there's been noticeable reduction in graduate programs or organisations taking on graduates, primarily at a university. So maybe as the public sector union, this wasn't a really big concern for them because they're looking at entry-level jobs. But we're talking about entry-level university or college-level jobs when they exit. And what we're finding here in Australia is they're not taking many interns or entry-level positions because AI is starting to do a lot of those roles. And normally what happens is you graduate, you'll get these jobs, you learn, you get upskilled to work with a mentor or an expert, and over time you develop your skills and you progress up through the ranks and your experience. Now, if there's not a lot of those entry-level jobs, where do those university graduates go to develop that? So that's making it more of a challenge for them, different skill sets. So now what they should have been talking about is organisations are looking, particularly in the professional area, people with AI skills already developed coming into these positions, how they can actually use them. And that wasn't mentioned at all. So these are the sort of things I was actually looking for, getting these experts who, obviously their job is to study this, to actually come in and provide more insight for us, which is really disappointing, I think, for us coming out, because that was our job, what was there to actually listen to. The other thing which is quite interesting, which is a bit around careers, and we're starting to see people tweaking to what AI can do for jobs. And what it was, Claude releasing an assistant that could do apparently argued a lot of law work. The idea it could generate a lot of things that a lawyer would normally do. And this actually caused a decline in the stock market because people realize, hold up, if Claude's doing this, and the other thing the developers there said they haven't actually written any code for a while, they get Claude to actually do all their writing for them of code nowadays. So this started to have twigs penny drop in the IT industries. While we're making all these apps, we're making these capabilities, they can really, I guess, eat their own industry and wipe out a lot of the jobs or the number of positions required to actually do that. But what came up both with Alex and with the union person is simply the fact that they were saying, which is Ricky, the union WA secretary, was the fact that what they expect to see is humans at the centre of the job. So, for example, we take the law example, and Alex was talking about how you might get the AI to write all your reports, and the job of the lawyer is actually going through and double-checking that it's all correct according to experience and knowledge. Similar when I talk about when we develop resources on AI for our classroom, once again, we're going to use our professional expertise to develop it. The issue with that and what they didn't address is that normally all the paralegals and the low-level lawyers would be doing all that work. Now, if you've got an AI writing most of it and you've got an experienced lawyer doing that sort of checking and then doing it, yes, the lawyer is cheaper. He did argue suddenly more people will get access to lawyers because instead of thousands of dollars, you might be able to see a lawyer for $100 because AI is doing all the work. But at the same time, you'll start to gut out all those young lawyers who need to come in and do that sort of work for the more senior lawyer to develop those skills, to get the expertise, to check what AI is actually doing. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. The other issue, I guess you raised the fact that, yes, you might be able to go see a lawyer for $100, but the question is, if you got lawyers suddenly losing thousands of dollars the way they're doing billing system, how will that change their entire model in terms of how do they survive with the number of staff, facilities, things like rents and things like that? You're now charging $100. You've got to see a lot more clients. Does the quality of your legal advice decline because you're now having to see many more clients to generate the same amount of revenue coming in? So there's a lot of aspects that would have been really interesting insight conversations that they've actually could have brought into it. But alas, that was not the case. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, how it's affecting your own particular industries. In education, we're fairly safe at the moment because they can't get enough teachers. And the fact that, like I said, unless you like that school in Texas, the AI school, and you've got very highly motivated, controlled students, a lot of our students would have to be taught to work within that particular environment. I hope you enjoyed this, I guess, bit of a discussion, more of an opinion piece coming from myself out of here in terms of the impact AI can actually have and the fact that really, even these experts, people high level, aren't really producing the sort of answers that we actually need in terms of where AI is going to affect us, our students, and our co-workers around us because no one really knows. At the moment, lots of companies aren't officially adopting it, but they're calling it the shadow IO work, and that's where most of it's happening. We're all getting more productive in our own little ways by using AI with or without the knowledge of our employer. So anyway, keep up the good work. I'll slot this in between one of my other episodes. And I'd love to hear your opinion because, like I said, I was expecting a lot. I didn't get it. And I think that's a real issue in terms of discussions around AI in the career space that us as career practitioners need to know. So until then, keep up the good work.